Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by South Point Dodge. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined every day by Bobby Burton. Jerry, on the other hand, is on the road today. You never know if he'll pop in. He may not, but we're going to have a lot of people pop in today. Hank South, Bob Shipley, and then we also have another special guest coming up, around 9 o'clock, Bobby. I'll let you tell folks about that here in a second, but I also want to tell everyone to tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, and obviously get your questions in because we're going to get to a lot of those as well. But, Bobby, I'm going to let you run down that special guest at 9.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve Palazalo joined us from the 33rd team. He's going to talk a little Longhorn football with us. He recently did an interview saying that there were a couple of teams that were ahead of others in his prognostication for the 2026 season. Texas was not among them. Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State were. We'll see what all that means, but we'll talk to him. But also, he's a draft analyst and has done a good job with that over the years. He wants to talk about Arch Manning and Trevor Gooseby as well. A couple of notes from Jerry. Hank South's going to join us in a little bit to talk about some of the new offers, as well as some developments around Monshon Sales, the wide receiver out of Indianapolis, Indiana, that Texas is after. We're going to talk a little bit about him with Hank South. First, I want to say a couple things. Jerry was headed yesterday, if you remember, Blake, to go see the young man in Mississippi. That town had absolutely brutalized. They ended up canceling the spring game. School was shut down. So Jerry went on to see a guy out of Louisville, Mississippi, not Louisville, Mississippi. Jerry wanted me to make sure. He was told yesterday that they don't call it Louisville, they call it Louisville, Mississippi. That'll be one of those things that we talk about as well. Also, yesterday, Corey Redding joined On Texas Football last night with our friends Rod Baber, CJ Vogel, and Coach Bob Shipley. We'll talk to Bob Shipley about that momentarily as well.
All right. So I'll tell you what, before we even really get into anything, Bobby, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know about our sponsor this morning, South Point Dodge.
I can do that. Look, there's nothing like Texas football, and nothing runs like a Ram. South Point Dodge is Austin's Ram headquarters. The deals are hotter than a Saturday in DKR. Huge savings on Ram trucks and Jeeps, plus exclusive perks for On Texas Football listeners. 90 days to make your first payment, and we'll ship your new ride anywhere in Texas or beyond. More than 600 vehicles in stock, so whether you need a workhorse or a weekend warrior, we've got you covered. Visit South Point Dodge or come see us off I-35 South in South Austin. Get to the point at South Point Dodge. Thank you for their sponsorship of On Texas Football.
Well, I want to rewind a little bit because yesterday we were hoping to get to this and we didn't. But you talk a lot about continuity, Bobby, when it comes to Sark and the Longhorns. And I wanted to go back to this because this is the last back-to-back 10-win seasons for each SEC team. As you can see on the screen, or for those listening, there are 3, Texas, Ole Miss, and Georgia. And then a few schools have never had a back-to-back 10-win season. 3 of them, actually, in the SEC. But, Bobby, I wanted you to speak on this a little bit and get your thoughts.
Look, I mean, there's a couple teams in here that are a little surprising. But I also want to say, like, OU was, before Lincoln Riley's run ended at OU, they had a 7, 8, 9, 10-year run, and then COVID happened in 2020. So you'll notice a couple of stops in here from Florida and OU in 2019. The other teams, interestingly, have been more recent. And that's really where we see the majority of top-level football. Take out Missouri probably, and Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, LSU, Alabama. Those have been the teams of the last 5 years in the SEC right now. Texas clearly one of that top echelon. Other teams, it's been quite a while. I mean, now A&M went to the college football playoffs last year. OU did as well. But Texas, and one of the things that I've always said, and Steve Sarkisian even used the term, he didn't want to be a one-hit wonder. Texas clearly not a one-hit wonder. 3 consecutive 10-win seasons, so not just back-to-back, but 3 in a row now for the University of Texas. Some other teams just this gives you a sense, I think, Blake, of where Texas sits in the pantheon of the SEC right now. It really has ascended to that top tier. You have another team that has put in ton of money, not dissimilar to A&M in football and the University of Tennessee. Yet they haven't had back-to-back 10-win seasons for more than 20 years. For the Aggies, it's been more than 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, Auburn has won a national championship in that time frame and not had back-to-back 10-win seasons.
Yeah.
It's kind of a crazy list, but I think that the reason we wanted to talk about this is simply because it gives you a sense of where Texas sits. Yeah, and in 94, the Aggies were on probation. That's great. Fitting, I guess, right? Fitting.
Well, two things. Number one, I know it's not too long ago, 22 to 23, but to me, one of the things that immediately pops out is Alabama. I mean, it's been just a few years, but when you think about Alabama all the way back to 2008, 2009, somewhere in there, it's just odd to me to see it being a couple of years ago since they've had back-to-back 10-win seasons. And then my other thing, Bobby, is out of those 3 teams, or possibly if you may think it's all 3, could we see a triple back-to-back 10-win season from those 3?
Not sure. I mean, I think Texas has already had 3 in a row, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I mean, like continuing the streak right now. So, in a year from now, it says 24 to 26.
I think Texas is going to be there. I think Georgia's going to be there. I think there are questions about Ole Miss right now. Is Trinidad Chambliss actually going to be eligible? That would be the question, Blake. If he is, I think that, look, Diego Pavia was a really good college quarterback. Don't take the memes away from him in pro football right now, right? But he was a really good college football coach, or college football player. Trinidad Chambliss is better than Diego Pavia, and he's got better talent around him. And as long as Pete Golding, the new head coach there, doesn't screw it up, I feel good about him. I feel good about Ole Miss. I think they're actually one of the teams that you have to worry about in the SEC right now.
Yeah. Well, some other news that came out yesterday, and speaking of the SEC and Georgia, Bobby, I know you wanted to touch on this. Florida State and Georgia have mutually agreed to cancel their upcoming home-and-home series. The schools are actively working to schedule a neutral site matchup. That was announced yesterday. And then it was also announced that Alabama and Ohio State are going to keep theirs. I don't know why they announced that they're going to keep it, but they did.
Because people are saying they may not.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, look, here's the problem with the Florida State-Georgia game. And this is what I'm trying to get at. And I wrote my article on Texas Football about it. So it's unfortunate that Florida State and Georgia are both going away. The initial reaction of some people are like, oh, they don't want to play each other in the non-conference early season and then get knocked out of the playoffs. I think that may have a kernel of truth to it, because right now you only have 12 teams. If it were to go to 24, I don't think they would be worried about that, though, right?
Yeah.
They would take their chances to only lose 2 more games the rest of the season. The problem with it is, I think the real reason they're doing it is, one, to eliminate one game, because it was at a home and home. Now it's just going to be a single game.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is they're doing it because by putting it in a neutral site, you can get by the NIL rules of pay for play. And this is what happens. When first we practice to deceive, what a web we weave, or whatever the saying goes. I mean, you're taking a home game from, between the hedges or at Florida State, away from the season ticket holders, away from the general student population, away from the fans that try to go there every week and see their team. And you're putting it somewhere else, most likely in a big old NFL stadium somewhere, and you're doing it all because you want to get more money into your NIL coffers because you actually haven't called NIL what it really is in the first place. Okay. And I know that I'm preaching here a little bit. My apologies for that. But reality for me, Blake, and for those people out there, is that this is, I know what the saying is, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. It's like the tail is wagging the dog right now. Yep. And I give up. I genuinely give up. It feels like this is all a ruse to just, sidestep NIL rules. And I think that instead of us accepting it and just saying, okay, we need to ask for change. I'm not saying there has to be collective bargaining among college athletes. It could be some other sort of bargaining. But the reality of it is these sorts of problems or issues are rearing their heads and causing constant change when there's no need for change. I want to see Florida State take on Georgia at Florida State in Tallahassee. Yeah. That's a better game because Florida State's going to be the underdog by 10 points if they play that game in the Georgia Dome or wherever.
Yeah.
But in Tallahassee at night, who knows, right?
Worth at least 3 points.
Yeah, you get my point. But instead, we're bastardizing college football, giving away home field advantages, throwing away an additional game.
Yeah. No, I agree. We're going to bring on Hank here in just a second, but I was actually about to ask you this, and this is a super chat from Rocky P. Bobby, do you think if the college football playoff goes to 24 teams, will we see more teams more likely or keep status quo with scheduling big non-conference matchups?
I hope we go back to, with 24, you're able to keep the Texas Notre Dame contest that's scheduled. Now, they haven't officially said that's off, but I could see that happening if they keep it to a very small number again. But if they go to 24, you should be more willing. But hell, there's going to be teams like Indiana that still won't do it. They're still going to want to schedule Sacramento State in Northern Illinois. So something has to be done in multiple ways. The one that bothers me right now about this specific rule is NIL, because this is totally an NIL move by Florida State and Georgia. Instead of why can't we just have them play at Georgia and call it what it is instead of having to manufacture fake NIL rules to create value for them? It's just ridiculous. And, part of and I know people that go to home, not everybody goes to home games. And sometimes it's, you get to go to a game in Atlanta instead of Athens, or in Jacksonville instead of Tallahassee or Orlando or whatever, so more fans can see them. That's not what this is, though.
Yeah.
This isn't the Red River rivalry. It's not the same. NIL, how does it affect NIL is this way? Because it's a non-conference game, the players can get paid appearance fees for NIL. So by promoting the game itself in Atlanta or this major city, they can get, $1 million can be set aside to the two teams for NIL purposes to promote the game. That's how it is. And that's right. Yes. That's the issue, is that's the workaround for some teams for this. I think Auburn and Baylor are doing it this year, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody like that. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little recruiting this morning. We're going to bring in our own Hank South. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. How are y'all?
Good, Hank. Hey, we wanted to talk to you a little bit. Blake and I were talking this morning. I got Jerry while he's on the road again, and he said, "Hey, have Hank on, have him update." There was a report yesterday that came out about Monshawn Sales, the wide receiver out of Indianapolis. Let's start there. It kind of confirms what Jerry has been saying, that Miami is fading, and it sounds like he's going to visit Texas after all. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is. And things are moving quick with Monshawn Sales, it appears. Miami was set to host him June 19th through 21st. It doesn't look like that's going to happen anymore. The teams most involved for Monshawn Sales right now are Indiana, obviously, home state, Ohio State, Alabama, and Texas. And so those are the 4 teams to watch going into June. Texas has they have that official visit they kind of tentatively scheduled with him for June 5th through 7th. He has the state track meet that weekend, though. So, with Miami fading, I think the easy, projection there is that he'll be on that last weekend. We'll wait for official confirmation there from Monshawn Sales, but that's when Texas would optimally like to bring him in. That's kind of their big weekend. That was last week when we saw Richard Wesley commit. They get, they want all the official visit weekends to be big, but that last one, especially going into July commitment season, is an important one. So yeah, it's interesting. Texas is really turning up the heat here, and if they do get him in that last weekend in June, that shows a certain level of seriousness with Texas on his end. Because again, as Jerry's reported and we've reported on OTF, he reached out to Texas. Like, Texas was going to take Easton Royal, and who they still very much want to keep in this class, and then maybe take some more developmental wide receivers. Not a Bryson Thorough, obviously, who's still very much a top target in state. But Monshawn Sales wasn't on the radar. He reached out. They got him in on a visit, and things have gone from there. So this could ultimately really turn into a Texas Indiana race, which is it's just kind of crazy to think how much ground they've covered in the last 2 months.
That is a lot, and it's interesting to me that Texas is down. I mean, these are the number 1 and 2 receivers. Some people rank Royal first. Some people rank Sales first, and the two have talked a little bit. Is that the case from what you understand?
Yeah, I mean, they've communicated. If you followed on the social media when Monshawn Sales took the visit to Texas a couple weeks ago, Easton Royal was there, or it was quote tweeting him and cheering him on, saying let's do this. So you like to see that. Then you go and see Easton Royal talking about ticking time, or whatever the hourglass for when he's going to flip to LSU. So you can't really always take social media seriously, but it's good that I think that, especially if you look into the idea that Texas could lose they will lose several wide receivers to the NFL draft this offseason, or expect to with Cam Coleman, and we'll see what happens with Wingo and Mosley. But yeah, there's Easton Royal cheering him on. So this could ultimately turn into a pretty important wide receiver class where they need to hit big, and maybe Monshawn Sales becomes even more of a need than maybe originally thought.
He's 6'3" and in the state 100 meter. Is that
he's
6'5"? Are 6'5"?
Yeah, he's 6'5".
Whew. And he's in the state 100 meter.
Yeah, he can fly. And his film, we talked about this the other day. It looks like a video game where it's like the quarterback just throws it up to him. But also, what I think is really impressive, he can find open areas on the field too, and catch it with the ball in his hands. He can make things happen after the catch. So he's not just a throw it up fade receiver. Like, he can do multiple things catching the football. So and he plays safety. So if you watch his film all the way through, there's some clips of him coming in and laying the wood on some of the running backs. So he's a really interesting prospect.
Yeah, he will. I think that's what that cornerback just said. He's really interesting as he pancakes me. Hey, some other news I mentioned yesterday. Jerry couldn't get over to Brookhaven to see Derwin Fields, the defensive end. Jerry's on the road this morning to see Jabari Garor over at Viger High School in Mobile, Alabama. What else is going on in recruiting right now? I'd give people an update if you don't mind.
Yeah, talked to Jerry this morning. There's Jabarius Garor. He was on Texas campus 3 weekends ago, I think. Spent the entire weekend with his whole family. OTF got an interview with him afterwards. Really impressive kid. Was an Alabama commit for about a year and a half. This spring, he decommitted from Alabama. And right now, having talked to Jerry, it sounds like it's Texas versus Miami for Jabarius Garor, which is another one of these recruitments where Texas has really just surged in the spring. I think they really knocked it out of the park with the visit. Credit to Alan Clark, who does a really good job recruiting that edge position. So, we'll see him take his official visit in June. He's expected to visit Georgia soon as well. So that's a school that can maybe, get into that top group with Texas and Miami. But yeah, this is another one. Texas has 2 edge rushers committed in Cameron Hall and Derwin Fields. They want to take another guy, and Jabarius Gore, you'd be hard pressed to find another guy top of board like him, maybe DJ Jacobs, but I think Jabarius Gore is maybe more of a realistic addition, a potential addition for Texas. So that's a really, what I loved about him, awesome kid. When CJ and I talked to him on campus, he wants to open up a chicken restaurant. His motto is get more sacks, eat more chicken, something like that. It's kind of like Chick-fil-A-esque. But he has a shirt already. He was wearing his logo on his shirt. Like he's ready. So talk about a kid that, when he gets his NIL money, he's going to try to put it to good use.
That's good. Hey, Texas, I noticed offered some more players yesterday as well. A couple of those names, if you don't mind.
Yeah. A lot of 2028 kids. So, as they go out on the road, Texas is pretty intimately familiar with the state of Texas. They know who's here. So you see a lot of out-of-state offers. So we've seen a bunch of 2028 offers, whether it be California, Georgia. One 2027 offer caught my eye last night, though. KJ Jackson from Lithonia, Georgia. He is a 6'6", 265-pound tackle. So obviously, he's going to need to put on weight, but 6'6" frame, you can imagine good things can happen from that.
Offensive
tackle from Georgia. And, Georgia puts out some pretty stud offensive linemen. I actually talked to Jerry about him this morning. I think the thought with him right now is he's trending to Georgia. Makes sense. But you got to offer him to see where you're at. And so we'll see if maybe Texas can sneak in an official visit in the month of June. But that was an interesting one. They offered another 2029 running back. It's crazy. We're talking about 2029, 2030 kids out of McEachern, Georgia, which is a pretty high level program in Powder Springs out there. Ty Nolan offered a couple kids. There's a contingent of Texas coaches in California. Earlier this week they offered a big 2028 offensive tackle, Atin Fita. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I apologize. But Oaks Christian, which is obviously where some big time prospects have come out of in years past. So they're certainly doing their due diligence on the road. And I meant to add with Jabarius Gore, another interesting note. Jerry told me his spring game at Viger High School in Mobile was supposed to be tonight. It got moved to next week due to weather expected, and that means Alan Clark can get out there next week for that spring game. So another in-person visit with him.
Interesting. You have some KJ Jackson highlights. This is the new offer from the state of Georgia. He looked a little bit like a Trevor Gooseby starter kit at 6'6", 275, but more of a run blocker at this point than pass protector, I guess is the best way to put it. A young man out of Lithonia, Georgia. Hank, anything else going on as far as recruiting is concerned right now as we wait for this big month of June that's coming up?
Yeah, and I think the big things to watch right now, obviously Brock Williams 1 week from today is announcing his commitment. We've talked about him at length on this show and on OTF, the site. So we're going to watch him next week with Ohio State and Georgia, the other hats on the table. We think Texas is trending there. Always got to mention John Meredith. That one's coming down to it. We expect it to really just be Texas and Texas A&M. A month from now, maybe he's making a decision. Obviously nothing's set, but that would, kind of line up with the intel we're hearing. Montre Jackson, someone just mentioned him in the comments. He actually has a commitment date set for June 26th. So shortly after official visit season. Texas has obviously always been in a good position with him. He consistently names Texas his top school. Texas Tech, Ole Miss, or the other schools kind of in the mix with him. But, this is a bbig DB class we're expecting. So, it's not just John Meredith that they're trying to add to this group. And I should mention Honor Falevi Johnson, the 5-star athlete safety committed to USC. Texas went out and saw him this week again out in San Diego. And, crazier things have happened. You got to keep recruiting. Jerry says recruit to the whistle. That's one of these situations where Texas will do that. He was one of Will Muschamp's first stops when he got the job at Texas. And they're not letting his USC commitment really slow them down. Doesn't have a visit set at this point, but maybe if they keep talking and keep showing interest, maybe he's a kid that comes out in the fall or something, and gives a look. Who knows what's going to happen in college football? If Lincoln Riley, what happens with USC this year? So you got to recruit these kids, even if you got to stay on them.
Johnson is the one that looks like a blur on the screen. He literally looks like a blur. He's got that immediate acceleration. All right, Hank, thanks for filling in for Jerry for a little bit, giving us the recruiting rundown. We will talk to you again later tomorrow. You got sideline debate today. What else you got going on the website today?
Yeah, we got sideline debate. We're pretty excited about what we have coming there. Talking about transfer portal needs. Had there been a spring transfer portal, so stay on the lookout for that. We're going to do some position breakdowns. Obviously, Jerry's on the road with great intel coming out from all those Southeast prospects that Texas is recruiting. And we're going to catch up with some of these offers. So see what's going on with KJ Jackson. So certainly a good time to sign up and stay in the know.
All right. Appreciate you, Hank. You have a good one, bud. Have a good weekend.
Yes, thank you. You too.
All right. That was good stuff right there. A lot of info to take in, no doubt about it. And Bobby, I tell you what, we're going to have Coach Bob Shipley join us here in just a moment. But first, I want to take this time to let everyone know about one of our sponsors today. That's Prize Picks. And I'm telling you, it's May. The weather's perfect. Everything's rolling. And Prize Picks adds more fun to your favorite sports. Now every possession matters, every at-bat matters, every shot, every pitch. You're locked in from start to finish. You're not just watching anymore. You got a little juice in it. And the best part is it's easy. There's no deep dives, no complicated nonsense. You're just picking more or less on player stats, points, rebounds, hits, strikeouts, whatever you're already watching. You build your lineup, you submit it, and you're good to go. Takes maybe a minute. And you've got options everywhere as well. Basketball, baseball, hockey, golf. You can stick to one or mix and match across everything. Whatever's on, it fits. And Bobby, we had a little bit of a rough day yesterday, so we're going to try to rebound today. We went 0 of 2 yesterday, by the way. First, we're going to take Bryce Harper to have more than half hit. Harper eats when playing at Colorado. He has a .339 batting average at Coors Field. He averages like 1.25 hits per game against the Rockies, so I like that one. We're also going to jump in on some WNBA action this weekend. We're going to take Paige Beckers to have more than 14.5 points per game against Indiana. She averages a little over 21 when playing the Fever. And on the flip side of that, we're going to take Caitlin Clark to have more than 19.5 points. Clark's going to obviously look to start hot this season. And when playing limited minutes against Dallas earlier in the season, she racked up 21 points. So we're going to roll with that. You trust your gut, you lock it in, and now every single moment and every single play matters on Prize Picks. So download the app, use code HMA, play $5. They'll give you $50 in lineups instantly. Code HMA, 5 gets you 50. And as always, play smart, play responsibly, play Prize Picks. And I'm going to let you tell everyone about Mint Mobile.
Yep. Every group has someone who insists on doing things the hard way. That friend still paying for a subscription they forgot they had. One refusing to update their phone because it still works. I used to be that person too, especially when it came to overpaying for wireless. Then I switched to Mint Mobile, and I'm glad I did. Stop paying way too much for wireless just because that's the way it's always been. With a 7-day money-back guarantee and customer satisfaction ratings in the mid-90s, Mint makes it easy to try it and see why people don't go back. For a limited time, get 50% off 3, 6, or 12-month plans of unlimited premium wireless. So if you're ready to stop paying more than you have to, new customers can make the switch today. And for a limited time, get unlimited premium wireless for just $15 per month. Switch now at mintmobile.com/OnTexas. That's mintmobile.com/OnTexas. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6, or $180 for 12-month plan required. That's all $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Over 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. Additional terms apply. See mintmobile.com for details. Again, that's mintmobile.com/OnTexas. I want to know if our friend Bob Shipley uses Mint Mobile or if he's one of those guys that refuses to change things. I think that you are a guy that refuses, but when you make the switch, coach, to something new, you go whole hog. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, you're pretty accurate. But I've been hearing about Mint Mobile, and after seeing that, you'd be a fool not to do it. Really, I'm serious. I mean, I'm not that smart, but that's a heck of a plan right there.
15 bucks. Hey, Coach, I wanted to bring you on this morning. Appreciate you joining us on Fridays. Got a question for you. You guys had Corey Redding on last night on the live stream. You, Rod, CJ. What did Corey have to say that you felt was particularly interesting about either his time at Texas or what he's up to nowadays?
Wow, I'll tell you, what a great segment we had with him. Corey looks like he could still play, I asked him how many players from North Shore were, had spent time in the NFL, and there's just no telling. I mean, it increases every single year. I think we know of maybe 20, but I'm sure there's many more than that. But, just for him to reminisce back during his time, and at Texas, during his time, he had he played with some great defensive line. I mean, they were you hear the steel curtain. I mean, those guys were unbelievable. I think 3 of the 4, maybe all 4, went to the NFL. And, Rod was talking about him, and he just said he's just the kind of guy that when he stepped on campus at 18, it's like he was 24. He was so mature. He took care of his business. He said the reason that he was able to stay that long in the NFL was because he took care of his body and he wasn't out partying. He had a wife that that kept him at home. And Rod said when he was in Texas, he was the one that would go out on 6th Street and say, okay, where's so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? Where'd he go? Just making sure the mother hen, making sure everybody got together. And that leadership certainly showed when he was playing, football. But, just the time at the university, the best decision he ever made. He believed in Mac Brown. He believed in the trajectory of the program. And, how different it is in the NFL when, you're spending time with guys almost 24/7 when you're in college. When you're in your NFL, everybody goes off and, does their own thing as soon as practice over with, and they want you to go to clubs or do this or whatever. And he didn't do it. He made sure he was eating right. He made sure he was getting, massages and treatments and everything. And he just handled himself as a true professional. And he said that's the only way he stayed as long as he did in the league. But I did have to give him a hard time because he was way up in the 300s, pounds when he was playing. And one time they were playing the Green Bay Packers, and he got a fumble and rumbled 36 yards. There was 11 guys on the field that were trying to tackle you, and you beat them all to the end zone. He goes, man, that's a play I'll never forget. I think it was a Brett Favre fumble that he returned back 36 yards and even had a couple of interceptions in the NFL. And of course, the big one against North Carolina when he was at Texas was probably his most iconic play at the university. So he was just all class, and just so proud to see guys like that were, Texas X's and representing the university, even at this point in his life. Just it was a great segment we had with him last night.
You guys can go check that out. I got to ask you, Bob. That was a backflip, I think, or a forward flip into the end zone by Corey.
Yeah.
13-year NFL career, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, Derek Johnson did something similar, right?
Yeah.
Those guys, the commonality between those that you just mentioned, and I'm not saying other people don't do it that don't have this long a career, but they took care of their bodies.
Yeah.
You really pointed that out, and I think to go that long in the NFL, you can't have the wear and tear happens on the field. It doesn't need to happen anywhere else as it relates.
Yeah.
To football,
and
right?
he had a chip on the shoulder because he knew the way the NFL works. Every year they're trying to replace you every year. That motivated him to make sure he came into training camp in great shape, made sure that he took care of his body throughout the season. And because they're always trying to replace you. That's just the name of the game in the NFL. They're always trying to upgrade, and he made sure his position was one that they weren't going to upgrade.
Yeah, it'd be hard to upgrade him.
Yes.
13-year NFL vet, I believe. All Big 12, All American as a senior. Just a tremendous Longhorn as well. I believe he's living in the Austin area still, correct?
I think so.
And all that. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach. Question for you. I was talking earlier. Georgia and Florida State have decided to cancel their home and home series and instead play one neutral site game this year. I think it's not because of them worried about making the playoffs. Maybe Florida State is. Georgia's not really worried about that. At a 12-team playoff, at 24, it becomes kind of irrelevant. If you're going to lose 4 games, you don't belong in the playoffs. But my question for you is, they're doing it because of NIL. Because neutral site games, teams are able to pay NIL, or the sponsors of the game itself are allowed to pay the players NIL for their name, image, and likeness. But that's one of your 12 games. And this isn't, and I mentioned it, it's not the Red River rivalry. There's nothing steeped in passion or reasoning other than to pervert the NIL rules as they exist today. What are your thoughts on that? I said that it feels like the tail is wagging the dog. Do you, longtime observer of college sports, you've actually done scheduling in high school sports, so it's a lot different, right? But your thoughts on that whole morass that we've got ourselves into?
Well, I've got 2 questions. Can Texas and OU do the same thing?
I don't think so, because it's a conference game.
Oh, I see. I'm wondering if they're thinking that that's going to save them some money.
Yes.
NIL wise on the front end, to be able to just load up on that game to get those guys, some money. And I understand, unfortunately, that's the world that we live in, that these guys are wanting as much money as they can possibly get, because, we've all seen guys that, I thought Jordan would have a long career in the NFL. He didn't. He made it 3.5, 4 years. And it's a money grab, I'm a traditionalist, and I don't like that, but who cares what I think about it and what you think about it. They're trying to make a decision that's financially advantageous for their players. Again, that's not, it's something that I hope that we don't start seeing. Are we going to start playing Notre Dame and in Kansas City or something?
Or in San Antonio. I mean, I have nothing against San Antonio. I think, it's just, that's what I was getting at, is you start taking the home field out of college football, and all of a sudden you change the parameters of the game. I mean, look, as I mentioned it, Georgia and Florida State, Georgia's going to be favored by double digits no matter where they play. Okay. But Georgia at Florida State at night presents a different problem than Georgia and Florida State in Orlando at noon.
Yeah.
It changes the integrity of what college football is to pervert the rules just for NIL. This is where not addressing the elephant in the room actually affects the long-term sanctity of the game we love.
Yeah.
And that's where I have a problem with it.
Yeah. They claim they're still going to have the same number of home games. So
yeah, how?
I don't know. I don't know how, unless you're taking out a FCS game or something, that you're going to have at home every year, and doing that instead. But I kind of think maybe they're trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit, much like Texas Tech did with when they saw the NIL cap coming. They front loaded their players. They front loaded them when they could, so that when the cap hits, they would still have money left over for younger players. And they were kind of ahead of the game on that thinking. I'm wondering if, maybe they're trying to see the next loophole in this NIL thing and kind of get ahead of the curve and do that. I don't know what kind of money they're talking about, but it's
enough to make the change, Coach.
Yeah, enough to make the change. That's exactly right. And that's something that Kirby's going to have to address with his, with his constituents at home that, love to play in Athens. And, I don't know. I don't like it, but there's a lot of things about today's world in college football I don't like. But like I said, I'm a crusty old coach, and nobody gives a flip what I think or say about it. But the only good thing about it is it's helping some kids. Maybe if it's all for naught. I mean, we've seen the thing that happened with the with the quarterback from Cincinnati at Texas Tech. I'd say the majority of these kids probably aren't real smart with what they're doing with their money they're making from NIL.
Unfortunately.
And so I wish there was some way, something in place that would require them to invest a certain part of it in, something that's really going to make a difference later on in their life. Now I know there's a lot of players that want to take care of their families, want to take care of their grandparents, want to take care of the unfortunate in their circle that need some help now. But I think there's so much money being thrown around out there that you could still, and then you get into, okay, well, who are they going to be able to invest it with? You don't want to give one investment firm the advantage by taking care of all the NIL money, but it would be nice if there would be part of that for their own good. And it's something that they may not understand right now, but later on when they're, 40 years old, they're going to be so thankful that they have this money put back to help them get through tough times in their life once football's over with. And, like I always told my players and my boys, when football's over with, you're stuck with who you are, and if you're not a good money manager, you're, how many times have we seen it? Guys make, even in the NFL, just make millions and millions, and they have zero to show for it because they didn't have financial guidance in helping them make this a lifetime boon for their own financial gain later on in life when they're really going to need it.
Coach, appreciate your time this morning. I hope you have a good weekend, and caught Jordan's segment with Mac Brown the other day. I thought it's awesome. Happy for him that he's back going really well, and wish you nothing but the best this weekend, man.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good show. Take care, buddy.
Monday. All right, it's Bob Shipley, father to Jackson and Jordan, the former Longhorn wide receivers, and also a longtime high school coach in the state of Texas, and was on the staff at the University of Texas under a couple of different coaches, actually. So really good. Always good to have him on, and he's got that old man wisdom. I say I'm old, but Bob's a little older than me, so he's got that going for him. All right, hey, we got another guest coming up, Steve Palazalo. Steve, welcome into the show, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Steve's with Check the Mic and also the 33rd Team, a source focused largely on the NFL draft and college football teams as well as the NFL. How you doing today, Steve?
Doing great. Nice. It's like a little early off season for me. Draft's over, but I like this time of year. That's my messy kids background. I share my office with the children, so
I understand that problem. Hey, I got a question for you. I saw a couple of things this past week that I wanted to ping you on a little bit and talk to you about. One was your evaluation of Arch Manning. Somebody asked you, quote, is if Arch Manning's last name was Monroe instead of Manning, would he still be talked about in that same category? That was part one. And then also you do a data analytics look at teams in college football for next year. Last year, your data analytics suggested Indiana and Miami would be two of the stalwarts of the season. And actually, they ended up playing for the national championship. Want to get on to those two subjects with you. Let's start, though, with Arch Manning. What are your thoughts on him and how you answered that question? I thought was going to be appealing to some Texas fans, probably.
Yeah, I mean, Arch is he's already been a hot button issue for everybody. You know, he comes in with all the hype last year, and they lose in week 1, and everybody I think kind of wrote him off. And I think there's some positives and negatives to Arch and his game from a prospect perspective, and just from a what can Texas do next year perspective. So, I think the name probably helps him a little bit. I'm sure that there's some hype there, but if you take the name away, you got a big dude who can zip it, is extremely athletic. He almost seems more comfortable throwing on the run and playing, I don't want to say outside of structure or freewheeling it, but he's comfortable moving, right? He's comfortable making the throw. I posted the throw yesterday on Twitter/X, the Oklahoma game, 3rd and 7. I know Texas fans know this one, right? It's a 4-point game. And I thought the end zone view did a really good job of showing it. The wide cam showed it. He rolls out to his right, throws an absolute dot on the sideline. But the end zone cam shows there's quick pressure. I mean, he is under quick pressure, and he's fast, obviously. And he has to use that speed to vacate the pocket, accelerate quickly, and then throw an absolute dime on the run. I think that just shows the types of tools that he has. Last name aside, doesn't matter. You don't have a lot of people that can make that throw. And so I think the interesting thing about Arch and the Manning name and everything is sometimes you paint a picture of what you're expecting, and you wouldn't draw up a Manning quarterback who actually plays like him, who is that athletic, who is more comfortable throwing maybe on the run. I think he's got some short area accuracy issues that need to be tidied up. I think mechanically he's really interesting. His front arm is super tight to his body. You don't always see that for quarterbacks, and I think that might have something to do with his accuracy issues. So short area accuracy wise, I go back to the Ohio State game. If he just hits a shallow cross, they probably tie that thing up and make it a game late in the second half. And he's, I think the touch on some of the short stuff is off, as well as the ball location. So, look, he's still young as a starting quarterback. So those are the types of things I think need to be tidied up. But then other times you see the movement skills, and then I'd say the overall, wanting to play quarterback the right way. Even though he can run, he's also looking to pass. He's always looking to throw. I think he makes pretty good decisions when he's going to take off and run. And so he's just an interesting mix, because you attach this last name and you think, well, Peyton's one of the most cerebral quarterbacks, and Eli's the 2-time Super Bowl winner. And there's really not many similarities at all between any of the Mannings. And I think that's what people need to separate. You've got this actually really toolsy quarterback who I would say is a little raw from an accuracy perspective, but wants to do quarterback things, sit in the pocket. He wants to play in rhythm. I think he can do that a little bit better. And I think he's just going to tighten up some of the ball location stuff, especially up to 10 yards. And that'll be what I'm keeping an eye on for this year.
Yeah, he appreciate that breakdown. It's I think everybody that was listening to you is nodding their head, because that's exactly what we saw from this season, Steve. So really, really well done, articulate. Hey, you also mentioned somebody else and did a breakdown of somebody that is not as well known nationally because he doesn't play the sexiest position, and that's offensive tackle Trevor Goosby. What did you think of Trevor Goosby? Because that's somebody that you've been looking forward to in the 2027 draft.
Yeah, Goosby, when he stepped in for Kelvin Banks a couple of years ago, I was really impressed with what he did against A&M. A&M that year had Cassius Howell, Shamar Stewart, 2 defensive tackles who went in the second round, or no, Nick Scorton, and then the defensive tackle, Shamar Turner, who went in the second round. And so he first steps in. He was really good there. I thought he had a really nice season last year. I think he's there's a couple plays I was screenshotting him, keeping defenders at bay, and super long arms. Looks like he's got 35-inch arms. I don't know if you guys ever had a measurement on him, but he's got great tools, moves extremely well. I think he can move people in the run game. So I think Goosby, and I know some of my colleagues who were looking at the draft thought he could have been the top tackle off the board this year if he had come out, because there were some questions for, the tackles at the top of the class either had some, traits issues, or they were more developmental. And I think Goosby's got a good combination of tools, really good production when he's been out there. I thought he was really good in pass pro. He didn't get beaten one-on-one very often last year. I think there were a few times he was maybe a little late on a stunt or a twist or, picking something up. But I think overall one-on-ones, he was outstanding. And like I said, he's got some power and people moving skills in the run game. So I was really impressed with Gooseby, his film, and expect him to have a big season and be in the mix to be a top 10 pick next year.
Anybody else that catches your fancy at Texas? Colin Simmons gets a lot. Cam Coleman gets a lot of notice. Jelani McDonald, even the safety.
Yeah. So, I mean, Colin Simmons is outstanding. I know Dylan Stewart is going to get a ton of hype because the UFO files are dropping today. Dylan Stewart looks like he should be in there with some of his movement skills over at South Carolina. But Simmons, I was so impressed with him overall as a football player. I know he was, highly touted recruit, but I look a lot at the, when you step in as a true freshman and you're as productive as he was, both in the run game and as a pass rusher, I just think he's got such great fluidity. The number of times in my notes I'm writing fluid athlete. There's just a coordination to his game when he's using his hands and his footwork matching extremely well. I think he can win any way as a pass rusher, and I think he's an outstanding run defender as far as plays with power, plays with pad level, knows how to shed blocks. He'll shed blocks with violence. So impressed with Colin Simmons. I saw somebody online make a Will Anderson comp, and I don't hate that at all. Will Anderson was a completely dominant SEC player. His second to last season, he was so dominant that he was, in the Heisman. You always have those defensive players who are getting a little bit of Heisman hype in October or whatever. Will Anderson was one of those few players. I wouldn't be surprised if Simmons had one of those types of years, right, where you stack up some of the sacks, the tackles for loss, and he's getting that type of hype. So I'll be interested to see where he and Dylan Stewart land. I mean, they're both top 10, top 5 type of picks. I think I like Simmons better right now as just an overall player. I'm so impressed by him. I would say, Cam Coleman coming in, obviously he's going to get a ton of hype, and you could just see, playing with, subpar quarterbacks over the last couple of years, some of the inaccuracy. He's got the size, fluidity. He's outstanding on double moves. The number of times that Cam Coleman's just behind the defense. He's going to have a ton of big play opportunities this year. Rasheem Biles, I thought the Pitt linebackers were so fun to watch. You had Kyle Lewis, who got drafted this past year. Really undersized linebacker who dominated the Senior Bowl. So you had Kyle Lewis and Rasheem Biles right next to each other. They blitzed a ton. Pitt really used their linebackers as weapons on the defensive side of the ball. Biles is super athletic. He had a great pick 6 against Louisville where you could see all of that on display. He reads the pass, picks it off, and then just outruns everybody on the field, which was really impressive. So I think you've got an incredible athletic linebacker there. So some high-end prospects this year, a bunch of potential first-rounders, and we'll see what happens with Arch, and if he's coming, if he's even coming out this year from a draft perspective. We'll see how that all plays out.
So, Steve, I appreciate this again. Steve Palazalo with Check the Mic and inside the 33rd team. Excuse me, not inside the 33rd team, but the 33rd team. Hey, Steve, a couple other questions for you. I mentioned at the outset that I saw you on an interview earlier this week talking about a few of the teams that analytically or data-wise you like a lot this year. Who are those teams and why? And then tell us where Texas sits among that.
Yeah, Bobby, I usually play to the crowd when I do the team stuff, so I'm not supposed to mention.
Hey, we believe in the truth here. We believe in the truth.
So yeah, I have a model. I do some consulting with teams, and I help with the portal. So I will work with teams. I've got projections on every single player. So analytically looking at what kind of impacts they're going to make as with respect to wins. How many wins is this player going to add to your team in the portal? So I do that from a consulting perspective. And then I have these team scores, and the team scores last year. This is something that teams, when they're sitting there in January with the portal, they can manipulate a little bit. They could say, if I bring this player in, it affects my team score, which historically has been outstanding at projecting wins. Michigan was the number 1 team in my team score in 2023 going into the season. And again, it's something that you can, add players, subtract players, and work with a little bit. So last year it was Indiana and Miami, believe it or not, who were 1 and 2 in my team score going into the season. Indiana 1, Miami 2. So I'm sitting there halfway through the year like, hey, this thing could look really good. I thought the dream was dead for a minute, but it came back, and they played in the title game. So this year early on, I gotta tweak some of the numbers a little bit, make sure all the rosters are in order. But right now, Oklahoma is looking pretty good in my numbers. They've got some receiving talent defensively between a few transfers and what they're returning. They're looking really good on that side of the ball. Plus, they coach it up really well on that side. So Oklahoma's looking really good right now. Oklahoma State is looking really good right now. And as I was telling, I was on with Andy and Ari on, from On 3 and those guys, and they were like, oh, that's interesting. And I said, look, it's a bunch of North Texas transfers. We know Drew Mestamaker, but they brought in all the best players from North Texas. This is going to be a fun test case. I do believe right now in this portal era, Cam Coleman, he could be a slam dunk, transfer. Rasheem Biles, he could be a slam dunk transfer. But I do believe a lot of the group of 6 players who are transferring, there is some incredible talent coming from group of 6 that get this Power 4 opportunity. So Oklahoma State looks really good in my numbers right now, and they're going to be a great test case. And then when we go back to the portal, before I had really put all the rosters together and looked at all the final movement, off the top of my head, I was like, all right, well, Texas is either in on or signing a lot of the top recruits, guys we've just talked about, or say Jaden Woods from Florida, players that they were in on but maybe didn't get. And it looked like Texas had done a good job. And then the other team, just off the top of my head, like I remember back in January thinking Texas and Notre Dame feels like what they have returning, what they've brought in, those 2 teams have crushed it. When I've run the numbers, both teams are right near the top as well. So, Texas, I think their retention plus some of the impact transfers that they have, plus some arch development should be right in the mix. And, as I offered Andy and Ari, we could do this right before the season, give you the finalized numbers, give you guys what I think is, it's going to look like. But I like Texas and Notre Dame so far. I think Notre Dame's bringing a ton back. Sprinkled in the right transfers, plus, the quarterback position with a redshirt sophomore like CJ Carr. So I like Texas and Notre Dame. Wouldn't be surprised if both of those teams are very much in the mix when we get to the Final Four, perhaps the national title game.
Notre Dame has the benefit of a beneficial schedule as well, whereas Texas has Ohio State early and then a 9-game SEC slate. Notre Dame, I think they're only going to have one game that's anywhere within a 7-point spread, most likely. And that's
Miami. And that's what I'm not even adjusting for schedule yet. So if you start to make that adjustment, I think Notre Dame, they were very upset about being left out of the playoff. Again, made my numbers look good because Miami got in and got to the title game, and I was like, look at that, my top 2 teams are in the title game. I'm on the the propaganda tour this summer saying, look, I projected the top 2 teams. Hire me, colleges. Let's go. You can be here too. But yeah, I think Notre Dame, they were upset by that, and I think Marcus Freeman's also laid a really good foundation. So schedule aside, I think they're going to be a really good squad. They're going to have a ton of draft picks next year, and so they're looking really good, and they have a chance to, I think, go on a run and look really good by the end of the year.
Steve, anything else you want to add before we let you go? You seem like you're a compendium of information. Anything you want to share with us?
No, I'm just, having fun right now. This is, we spend so much time on our show talking about the draft, and, we're just kind of like digesting from that. I work with both NFL teams and college teams. So I'm finishing up, consulting for the draft. And it's like, now I get to maybe go back and look forward to next year and going team by team from college and NFL perspective, trying to cover both. So fun time of year to just get back to watching more film and getting ready for next season, getting all hyped up in the spring and summer.
Steve, you're in Cincinnati. Next time I'm driving through there, I may stop by and get some Skyline chili. All right.
Please do. I'm not going to go with you because I'm not a Skyline guy, but I'll, we can hang out for sure, Bobby.
Steve, take care of yourself. And thanks for joining us again. That's Steve Palazalo, 33rd Team, and Check the Mic podcast. Steve, you have a good one, bud. Have a good weekend.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Welcome.
That was good stuff.
Yeah, he's good. Very good. Yeah, very articulate and knows his stuff, which is the most important thing by far.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, something else that's important, Bobby, is for you to let everyone know this morning about Vaughn Lane.
I can do that. I love Vaughn Lane. I've been talking about them for, I don't know, almost more than a year now. Look, if you're trying to get to major Texas cities and don't want to fight traffic, don't want to wait in line or take the bus, or take a plane where you just sit there and have to wait in TSA lines and fight all that, try Vaughn Lane. It is a super easy, super convenient. and super laid back experience. I can't tell you guys how much I appreciated the fact that I didn't feel rush. I literally got on. When I tell you that there's no line to get in, they literally checked my ID within a foot of the door. I got on, and then all I heard the rest of the way was an attendant asking me if I wanted to drink or if I wanted something else. I didn't even notice the traffic outside. That's how good Vaughn Lane is. Tremendous opportunity for people going to, from, or within the state of Texas. Dallas, Houston, the Woodlands, Plano, San Antonio, Austin, Fort Worth. And then you also have some cities in the Southeast that they connect, like Knoxville, Memphis, Nashville, as well as Atlanta. Use code OTF26 right now for $20 off your first ride. That's OTF26, VaughnLane.com, your first-class experience on wheels in the state of Texas.
Okay, well, before we get to our next thing to talk about this morning, some congratulations are in order. Number one, Texas softball defeated Ole Miss, blanked them last night, Bobby, 6-0. They move on, face number 13 Georgia tonight at 6:30 for, I believe, the championship. So there's that. And then Texas women's basketball point guard Rory Harmon, she's made the final roster for the Washington Mystics. They announced, so congratulations to her. And then just a little bit ago, the Bears announced that they signed former Texas defensive back Malik Muhammad. He's signed a 4-year deal worth $5.4 million, including a $1.1 million signing bonus. So there you go. All three things. Great news.
I'm happy for Malik there. Gonna have to ask him for a loan. Love it. Good for him. Good for Rory Harmon too. Softball, by the way, you said they played Georgia. Oklahoma lost.
Yes.
That was that they lost to Georgia in that softball matchup. So that was actually big for Mike White and his team trying to win the SEC.
Yep, definitely. All right. One of the things that I wanted to bring up this morning, Bobby, were some bowl projections pretty quickly here. CBS came out with theirs, and Texas, they have as the number 2 seed, so they would get that bye. They would play in the Cotton Bowl versus number 7 or 10, which in this case would be Texas Tech or SMU. But there's one team, actually there's 2 teams here that are missing. I don't know if you realize right off the top of the head who those 2 might be, but Texas fans should be happy. No A&M, no Oklahoma in their bowl projections for the college football playoff. They have, I believe, Oklahoma going to the Gator Bowl versus Clemson, and A&M going to the ReliaQuest Bowl versus Penn State.
You know, that obviously means they have Texas beating Ohio State and winning the SEC, right? If Texas is number 2 overall.
Yep.
Miami would have to go undefeated in ACC play and beat Notre Dame. I don't know that Miami's as good this year. They lose the 2 pass rushers. Now, yes, they recruit well. They lose 4 of their starting 5 on the offensive line. Now, they've got a better quarterback, I think.
Yes.
The running back is back. Malachi Toney, the receiver's back. I'm not dubious of this list per se. Oklahoma and A&M being out of it. If A&M makes the playoffs this year, they got either lucky or some people didn't live up to snuff elsewise. That's my take. Now, Oklahoma is poised. To Steve Palazalo's point, they look poised. They have the defense. They have the second-year starting quarterback. They've got better pieces on offense. They think they can create a run game now that they didn't have a year ago because 4 of their 5 guys are now older and starting again. You know, better wide receiver personnel for them, in their opinion.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pieces to it. I feel like this CBS prediction is fine, but I would welcome Texas playing SMU or Texas Tech in the second round.
Yeah,
that would be a fun thing
I agree.
to play that game in Dallas as part of that. But I'm up for it. I just want Texas to win the SEC. That'd be great. Texas wins the SEC, goes 11-1, 12-0. I'm all for it.
Can't argue with that. I know you're also probably pretty excited for UNLV versus Georgia.
Oh yeah, that's going to be a great one. Great matchup because Dan Mullen really has those. Dan Mullen's is now the head coach at UNLV, and my thought process here is that why are we doing this to ourselves? Why do we subject ourselves to this kind of stuff? UNLV would be a 3-touchdown underdog in the college football quote unquote playoffs,
at least in my opinion.
It's just ridiculous. But again, goes back. I mean, so many things are off schedule right now in college football. And I think that eliminating a home and home Georgia, Florida State is indicative of that. And it's not so much here's the real point that I was trying to make with that. It's not just that they're eliminating the home and home. They're actually keeping a game. So they're admitting that, okay, we'll have the game. We just want it to satisfy NIL purposes. That's go play between the hedges at night, Florida State. Go feel like what it's supposed to feel. Go play a tough game on the road in Tallahassee at night. That's what college football is about. I mean, think about Texas. I mean, Texas, when they played Notre Dame at night.
Yeah.
In Austin. Take that away from your experience as a Texas fan, and it sucks. That would suck. That's what I'm getting at. And that's what we're doing by perverting the rules.
I got one other congratulations. This one from one of our viewers. Iceberg 1963 says, heading to Austin today to watch my daughter graduate in Moody tomorrow at 11:30, 40 years after I graduated from Texas.
Wow, 40 years, dude. Congratulations. I graduated in 92, so I'm like 5 years behind you. 6. Congratulations to your daughter, though. Moody School of Journalism, I believe, and Communications.
Very, very cool.
Nice.
I tell you what, Bobby, we got time for just another question or two, but I'm going to let you tell everyone one more time about South Point Dodge.
Yeah, absolutely. South Point Dodge is your Ram headquarters in Austin. There's no two ways about it. There's nothing like Texas football, and nothing runs like a Ram. South Point Dodge, you can right now get deals hotter than a Saturday in DKR. Huge savings on Ram trucks and Jeep SUVs, plus exclusive perks on Texas football listeners. 90 days to make your first payment, and we'll ship your ride anywhere in Texas or beyond. There's more than 600 vehicles in stock, so whether you need a workhorse or a weekend warrior, we've got you covered. Visit southpointdodge.com or come see us off I-35 in South Austin. Get to the point. South Point Dodge.
There we go. I want to thank them for sponsoring every Friday. And Marcus here also said my cousin graduated yesterday. Watched her walking Gregory. So congratulations to her as well, Marcus. Very cool.
I love this, man. It is that time of year. It is that time of year.
And
now they got to go be adults. Now they got to go be adults. Yeah. that transition can be difficult for folks at times.
And a second ago, I said softball was going to play in the final. I meant semifinal against Georgia. Thanks to Carl Padilla for letting me know that I had that slip up. And Mulligan Molly with the super chat, Bobby, says, curious your thoughts. Do you drink or watch sober during Texas football games?
Oh, I'm a sober.
Yeah.
I'm so sober. I'm unreal sober. Like my wife wishes I would, actually, I think, to take the edge off. But I am not I'm not a drunk tweeter, or that's just not me. Very straight down the middle when it comes to Texas football.
Some of those post-game shows might be a little more interesting.
Yes. Well, we are sponsored by Flight by Yingling. I will put that out there.
Oh, man. All right. There was one from Jason Wason I wanted to get to. Thank you, Jason, for the question. He says, how different will the defense be with the must-champ scheme versus PK with stats and analytics? This
is a good question. Because the stats and analytics, I will say this, it's going to be hard for Texas to exceed what the stats and analytics say about PK's bend but don't break defense. I mean, it's really good, especially the last 2 years. I do think that Muschamp's defense will be more aggressive. I think we could see more sacks. I also think the offense is going to be better this year, which could lead to larger leads, which again leads to teams wanting to throw against Texas more often, again increasing most likely the sack number. One of the things that PK did really well over history, now they didn't do as well last year, was eliminating big plays. Muschamp's aggressive style could lead to more big explosive plays. And this is what Darwin Lemon's saying. So I think there's a little bit of give and take here. You had PK is a really high level defensive coordinator. So don't expect it to be this gigantic difference. The differences aren't necessarily going to show in stats and as much as they will show in style. So I'll say this: Texas rarely came out and just looked like they were suffocating a team on defense.
Yeah,
and they got there over time during a football season or during a game, some games. But with Muschamp, you may come out on fire, and a team may not get past the 50-yard line in the first half, and all of a sudden you've got a 24-0 lead. That's his style of defense. And that can be in a big game, by the way. So it's almost, and I somewhat wonder if Sark didn't want this style of defense because it fits his offense. I think Sark's style of offense is more befitting of a Muschamp style of defense. It's, he calls it, what's the term he uses? Complementary football.
Yeah.
I think Muschamp's style is more complementary to Sark's style of offense. And that may be not so much stats, not so much analytics. That may be the bigger piece to play, especially in big games.
Well, we'll use that question to tie into this one. This will be the last one for today. From Scott Speck, and Scott asked, after hearing Corey Redding on OTF. By the way, that interview has been, of course, it was on the live stream last night, but Matt also took it. It's its own solo show now, so you can go watch it like that as well. What is the greatest Longhorn defense in the modern era? And Bobby, I went back.
What is the modern era? First of all, is that like?
Yeah, so I went back just to 1990. And obviously, you could go a little bit further back than that. But I picked about 10 or so defenses. I'm going to put them up here on the screen for you, some stats to back them up. And you may have a completely different one than these by any means. I'm not saying this has to be it. But in your opinion, what has been the best?
Jeez. I think that the 2001 defense was extraordinarily good. And I thought the 2009 defense was probably the best.
I agree.
1990 was really good. It's just they played against a group of teams that didn't throw the ball as much other than the University of Houston at that time. So the yards may be skewed, I guess, is the best way to put it. If I had to vote, I would probably put 09.
That was my pick too, actually.
09. I like 2023 though. I like 2023. Who did you pick?
09 was going to be mine as well. I saw that question early when I got on here this morning, and so it gave me a little time to research. And 09, from a statistic standpoint, was the most impressive, I guess.
Yeah, they had NFL players at every level too.
Yes.
Yeah,
and considering who they played.
2001 was awfully good. I'm just going to tell you, awfully good. 01 and 09, and I'll give my honorable mention to the 2024 team.
Yeah.
I thought when Makuba became the starter at safety full time, that team became a different defense. He was that good. He kind of helped them put it all together with Jade Barron, Michael Taft, Manny Mahoney. It was that kind of good team.
Yeah, that's a fun discussion. I mean, there's a lot of good ones to choose from. So
I wonder if anybody else have an interesting one in a reason in the chat. Like,
well, someone said 83. I know, you and I briefly talked about this.
I told you 83 before.
And you said, and I was like, Bobby, I only went back to 1990. I'm sorry. But Bobby's first mention was 83. And again, for those listening, the graphic I made is just from 1990 to now. So that's why they didn't get mentioned off the top. But yeah, 83 was in there. Someone also mentioned, look at that 2010 to 2020 gap, which is telling, I think. And yeah, other than that, that's, ones we've said. And then Mulligan Molly says 2026 is going to make this list next year.
I'm for it. That's interesting about the gap from 2010 to 2023, though. You're right.
Yep.
That's we often talk about and bemoan the lack of offense in those years because the Big 12 was so offensive oriented in that time frame, right? Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, and they just threw the ball all over the yard, and Texas couldn't keep up. Not most years. And ultimately, though, defense plays a role in that too. So just a good reminder, I think, for everybody.
Yep. For sure. All right. Well, I think that's going to about do it for today. Bobby, I do want to wish a early happy birthday to Connor. He put in the chat last time I see y'all before I turn a new age on Sunday, but appreciate all y'all do, fellas. Connor, thanks for tuning in, and happy early birthday. Hope you have a great birthday weekend. Well, Bobby, what do you have for everyone later today? We got bases loaded coming, but what else?
Well, Jerry's on the road. He's at Viger High School in Mobile, Alabama, seeing Jabari Garor, big defensive end. Texas is trying to fight some folks for. And then we also have news and notes. We got the sideline debate coming up that Hank was talking about earlier. And the Texas coaches are on the road, guys. I've mentioned that at length. We'll be tracking their whereabouts and what's going on as it relates to recruiting.
Couple of late comments for the 05 defense as well. So that one we didn't really talk about, but a few.
They weren't a dominating defense, though. They were a good defense. The 05 team was not a dominating defense.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football. We want to thank South Point Dodge, Mint Mobile, Prize Picks, and Vaughn Lane for sponsoring. Of course, thank you all for tuning in as well. We hope you all have an outstanding weekend. Don't forget, Mother's Day on Sunday. So just a quick reminder for everyone out there in case you may have forgot. So we'll be back on Monday morning. And for Bobby Burton and Hank and everybody else that came on, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Coach Shipley, welcome.